In this programme, we'll be looking at the BeCM fitted to the Range Rover and how it relates to the other components in the vehicle. We'll examine fault diagnosis and then show you how to fit a new BeCM if ever you have to replace it. Now, we're not going to dwell too much on specifics, but we will talk more about the thinking behind how it works. Many of the Range Rover's features are made possible thanks to the BeCM, or Body Electrical Control Module to give it its full name. The BeCM is the brains of the car in the sense that it receives information from various sources and decides how it should perform the required action. Because it controls so much, when a customer comes in with a problem, it is easy to assume that the BeCM is at fault. So replacing it may seem to be the simplest solution. But of course that doesn't mean it's the correct thing to do. The BeCM is a major part and you shouldn't repair it unless necessary. And if the BeCM itself isn't causing the problem, changing it won't make any difference to the original fault, and you may create a few more. While the BeCM controls many functions, it's just one of possibly a number of components involved. So first, let's look at how the BeCM works. While it may seem complicated, in reality the BeCM merely combines many of the ECUs and relays. By removing the divisions between all the systems, they're able to share functions and resources. It also allows a considerable reduction in wiring. The BeCM covers the alarm system, central locking, memory seats and mirrors, windows, tailgate, fuel filler flap, lighting, instrumentation and speedometer. It doesn't control the engine management, but does communicate with it so that engine information may be used to perform other functions. The control of all these functions is brought together to allow components to span one or more system, whether it's providing an input or receiving an output signal. As an example, let's take a closer look at what happens when this car is unlocked. When the driver presses the remote, a coded radio signal is picked up by the receiver unit in the right rear of the vehicle. This signal is then sent to the BeCM, which reads and decodes it. Having confirmed that the signal is correct, the BeCM will carry out a series of operations depending on its configuration. The BeCM switches on the interior lights and ignition key barrel illumination. Where available, it instructs the seat to adjust itself to the memory position which corresponds to the handset being used. In the same way, it sets the mirrors to the required memory position. It instructs the security portion to release the doors and superlocks. The perimetric and volumetric alarm sensing are also disabled. All those instructions take place within the BeCM, but messages must be sent to other systems in the vehicle. A code is sent to disarm the battery backup sounder. Having entered the vehicle and inserted the key, the ignition is switched on. The engine management system is now remobilized. This in itself is a three-stage operation. The BeCM sends a code to the GEMS engine management ECM to cancel immobilization. The ECM sends a confirmation back to the BeCM, which then tells the instrument pack to extinguish the engine warning lamp. The operation is now complete. In real life, all this takes place in a matter of moments. So, what should you do when the customer complains of an apparent failure? With a system as sophisticated as this, with so many components interacting, the problem is largely a question of identifying the fault rather than fixing it. Now, this is where you need to use some careful consideration. You need to think about each problem in a logical way, eliminate possibilities, then you can home in on the source of the problem. Sometimes it isn't the car that's at fault at all. If a customer complains that a car's behaving oddly, it could well be that they are inadvertently activating a function which they don't fully understand. Let's take a simple example. It may be that the vehicle relocks itself after unlocking with the handset, but not on every occasion. Now, automatic relocking will only take place 1 minute after the last switch operation, and that will be suspended by, for example, a door opening. With the Range Rover, even the most diligent driver could be excused for forgetting the odd feature. The next type of problem may not be so easy to spot. These involve features of the BeCM which are not immediately apparent, but which could catch the owner out. For example, the BeCM uses a considerable amount of current when the car is running. To save the battery, it'll enter a sleep mode about 2 minutes after it's received its last input, such as a door closing, for example. When passive immobilization is installed, the 2-minute countdown begins after the immobilization has been activated. When the BeCM is awake or in activation mode, it draws about 1 amp. Sleep mode uses only 40 milliamps, and that includes the alarm system. 2 days in activation mode without running the engine could drain the battery to a point at which it may be difficult to start the vehicle. If a vehicle is parked in an area where it may be subjected to radio transmissions on the same frequency as the remote, the BeCM may not go into sleep mode. If the driver leaves his car there for a couple of days, he may well find that the battery is flat. But in this case, there's nothing wrong with the vehicle at all. Now, these two instances are very different, but should show that when you receive a report of a fault, you should carefully consider the symptoms before you begin any tests. There may be occasions when there is something wrong with the vehicle. Ensure you familiarize yourself with how it should work so you can establish where the fault lies in the vehicle itself. When you've done that, what should you do? Well, you should maintain a logical approach. Think about the system that's showing the fault. What are the components which are part of that system, and do they all work? The BeCM is technically the most complicated link in the chain, but it is generally a very reliable piece of equipment. The fault is much more likely to be with some other electromechanical device around the vehicle. Whether the function is simple, such as switching on the fog lamps, or complex, such as the alarm system, if it involves the BeCM, there'll be 2 sorts of device to check: those components which send signals to the BeCM and those which are controlled by it. And remember, it's important to understand how other input devices can affect how functions are carried out. Take the window shutting, for example. The main input comes from the window switch in the center console. The BeCM sends a signal to the outstation in the door telling it to close the window. It does this by connecting its permanent power and earth to drive the motor in the required direction. However, if the window is obstructed, the outstation fails to see a movement signal from the window motor, backs off, and the window will not close. So, if a customer complains that the window won't close, you need to check the window switch, the window motor, and the free play of the window, any of which could be causing the problem. Fortunately, Testbook can break the system down into its component parts and test them individually. The menus clearly show you the vehicle systems and let you monitor their performance via the BeCM. So let's see how we would diagnose a Range Rover which refuses to remobilize. After replacing the battery, an attempt is made to synchronize the remote by pressing the lock button and then turning the key in the lock direction. The light on the remote flashes correctly. However, the remote then fails to operate on the vehicle. Opening the door with the key sometimes causes the alarm to sound. If the alarm doesn't sound, then attempting to start the engine does make it sound. The message center reads, "Engine disabled." An attempt is then made to enter the EKA using the key, but there's still no response to the remote. Testbook is connected, but won't communicate with the vehicle. The BeCM alarm is still obviously armed. We must now consider what makes the alarm and immobilizer features work. The message reads, "Engine disabled," so the immobilizer is still armed. The remote light indicates that the remote is live and transmitting. The driver's door unlocks with the key, but the alarm doesn't disarm. Under normal circumstances, when synchronizing the remote, the button is pressed to transmit to the BeCM, and the key is turned to indicate via the key switch that the signal is from a legitimate key. From this, we could conclude that either the radio signal isn't getting through to the BeCM, or the key circuit isn't working. In addition, the vehicle won't accept its EKA number. This could be because the number is incorrect. However, this is unlikely and wouldn't affect key synchronization. The EKA, however, is entered via the driver's door key switch, and this could be the failure that's common to both problems. It'll be clear by now that there are plenty of other routes to explore when investigating a fault before you blame the BeCM. In fact, it's important that you investigate all the alternatives before considering that the BeCM may be at fault, because if you've missed something, changing it will make no difference at all. If there obviously is a problem with the BeCM and you have to fit a new one, this is what you do. The first point to remember is that there are two types of BeCM. These are termed high-line or low-line units. High-line units are capable of supporting more functions than low-line, but whichever you're replacing, you must fit a new BeCM of the same type. Before you take out the old unit, make sure where possible that the security system is switched off. If not, the engine management ECM may be immobilized and the car may fail to start. Don't forget to disable the battery backup sounder. To do this, turn the ignition on and off, then disconnect the sounder within 16 seconds. Changing the unit itself is straightforward, with just a few simple points to remember. Follow the color grouping of the plugs, ensure the power connections are made last of all, and don't tighten the power supply nuts on the unit to more than 7 Newton meters. Once you've installed the new BeCM, connect up Testbook and follow the on-screen instructions. Select New Range Rover, BeCM, and Programming. You'll now begin configuring the new BeCM by entering certain information when prompted. The majority of configuring is concerned with the vehicle's security system, and in some respects is similar to the individual systems fitted to other models. The difference being that, once again, everything resides within the BeCM, rather than in a separate security ECU. The security side of the BeCM requires 4 items of data. First, the vehicle identification number. This acts as a tag between the BeCM and the vehicle, and is also used to generate part of the immobilization code. If a vehicle is stolen, it may be possible to change VIN plates and chassis stamps, but the original VIN will still be present in the BeCM's memory. The vehicle build date is entered for the same reason, and plays no part in the day-to-day operation of the car. The lock set barcode is an important part of the vehicle data and must be entered accurately. Each vehicle lock set, which consists of door lock barrel, ignition barrel, mechanical keys and remote handsets, is identified by a 14-digit code. This is represented both numerically and as a barcode, hence the name. The barcode not only provides a traceable link between a vehicle and its lock set, but also prevents individual locks being changed quickly to disguise a suspect vehicle. It closes a loop that links all the components together. The BeCM is associated to the receiver, which is associated to the remotes, which are associated to the keys, which are associated to the lock barrels, which are, through the barcode, associated to the BeCM. So you can see the importance of the barcode and how failure to enter it correctly can disrupt the whole security system. The last piece of security data you need to enter is the EKA, or Emergency Key Access Code. This is the backup to the remote operation, and if entered incorrectly, could cause the customer great problems should they need to use it. As we can see, the failure of one part, for example, the remote, will break the security loop and keep the vehicle armed. The EKA offers the owner an emergency means of gaining access without compromising the security of the vehicle. One point should be mentioned about the emergency key access on Range Rovers from '96 model year onwards. You may already be familiar with EKA entry on Range Rover and Discoveries. The 4-digit code is entered by turning the key to the unlock position the number of times in the first digit, then to the lock position for the second digit, and so on. But the 96 model year Range Rover features passive immobilization. Before entering the EKA itself, turn the key to the lock position 4 times. This will lift the immobilization from the car, after which the EKA can then be entered as normal. Once these 4 pieces of data have been entered on Testbook, they'll be written to the BeCM, and with programming completed, they'll be permanently locked in. So it is very important to get them right. A new BeCM is supplied clean, so all values must be written into it. Apart from the security data that we've seen, everything else must be set, but can be changed. The BeCM can be configured for many market setups, each employing features required for that country. The Swedish specification, for example, has daytime running lights, which can be selected within the BeCM using Testbook. A word of caution about this market programming ability. While some changes, such as the running lights, are visible, other changes may not be so obvious. Systems such as security, locking, and windows may be altered with changes of market without you realizing it. Now, this could cause annoyance to the customer and in some instances could make the car illegal in some markets. It's important to remember that selecting the market option for a car is different from changing the language. The language option refers only to the message center and doesn't alter any other functions on the car. The BeCM will automatically set the message center to the language of the programmed market. But if, for example, a customer wanted the message center in French but would use the car in the UK, it's the language that should be changed, not the market option. In addition to the market and language, the BeCM also needs to be told whether a car is left or right-hand drive, the engine type, petrol or diesel, and whether it has manual or automatic transmission, and whether fog lights, a sunroof, and trip computer are fitted. Only one task now remains, and this involves the engine management system, in this case, GEMS. The GEMS ECM is still configured to accept the code generated by the old BeCM. The new unit, however, will have equated a new code. To change this, select GEMS, Subsystem Test, and then ECM on Testbook. This opens up a space within the GEMS ECM where the new BeCM code can be inserted. Once this has been done, the GEMS will now only answer to the new BeCM and the car will start. So, in this program, we hope we've dispelled some of the mysteries surrounding the BeCM. When you're faced with a problem, think about it in logical steps to try and track down the source of the fault. Sometimes it may not be a fault at all, but the BeCM carrying out one of its more obscure functions. Taking a logical approach and using Testbook allow you to separate the systems controlled by the BeCM and test individual components. The cause of simple functional problems is much more likely to be there than in the BeCM itself. If you do need to change a BeCM, remember that it needs careful configuring. The security data is vital if the car is to function at all, and other information is needed to ensure that the vehicle behaves correctly in the owner's hands. If you're in any doubt, further information is available from the Electrical Troubleshooting Manual, bulletins, and the Technical Help Desk. It's the BeCM which allows the sophistication of the Range Rover's features by bringing diverse functions together. Overall, it makes the operation of the vehicle simpler and easier to manage by combining differing actions in one package. By using Testbook and a clear logical approach to the problem, it makes fault finding easier too.